Yeah, it's amazing. We think if everybody followed the process and procedures that it would be perfect, but when it comes to having teams of people and dealing with people, and you got a little bit of a variable in there that you got to do. You got to let them know what your goal is, and find out what their goal is, and then just align those so that we're all going in the right direction. But the people variable is definitely something that comes into play, and that's, well, as we were talking about earlier. Uh, Part of being a franchise is just helping the people and having a team of people do things for you. In order to do that, you've got to do things for them as well.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching and listening this week. Today we're talking to Greg Mohr, the franchise maven. So what we dive into is franchising from, the perspective of owning one or buying one. If you have a business, converting it to one. So it was something that I'd never really thought about in terms of investments or even a career change. So it was really cool to hear from Greg, who has a lot of experience in helping people find a franchise specifically that fits what they want to do in life. So I think there's going to be some great insight in this one. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. But let's jump right into the conversation with Greg. I kind of like to just dive right in and talk a little bit about what it is you do now, because I found your content, your information interesting, just because you think of franchises. It's kind of the big box things like a McDonald's or something. But uh, with your posts, I start to see that so many more businesses and opportunities exist out there. So I kind of just wanted to hear from you. What is it that you do, and what is a franchise?
You got it. So, what I do, a couple different aspects to what I do. On that is, people come to me. They're looking to do a couple things. One, quite often, corporate refugees. They want to get out of the corporate world. They've been doing that for years, and they decided it's time to do something else for themselves. And they don't have the latest, greatest idea necessarily, but they wanted to go into business for themselves. So they come to me looking to find out what would be a great franchise for them. So I work with people, finding out where have they been, where are they at now, and where do they want to be 5 to 10 years from now. I get to know them just as well as I can. Got a lot of questions, got a little questionnaire for them to fill out. And then what we do together is find franchises that'll be a good fit for what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish in life on that. I also get business people who are looking to diversify a little bit, so they just want an investment. I get businesses who want to grow, but do not necessarily want to spend the money themselves to grow that business or to grow out of the locations, or maybe they've had a couple locations and they realize how expensive it is. So they want to do more exponential growth through franchising. So I help them turn a business into a franchise as well and help them grow that franchise system. As far as the different franchises you can get into, a lot of people aren't necessarily up on how many different franchises there really are out there. Most of the time when we think of franchise and we think of businesses, we've driven by a location. We've seen a location somewhere. It's a location. We refer to those as the brick and mortar type franchises. So basically you build it and they will come. On that, there's many franchises that unless you needed their services, you would not have heard of them. Service related franchises on that one. So when you're looking at a brick and mortar type franchise, those are the ones that are going to be a little bit more of an investment. Generally speaking, $250,000 on up for that. Then we get into the services franchises that are a lot less. You're looking at 100,000, 150,000, give or take. If you work out of your own home, where you go out and see your clients don't necessarily come to your home, which would be probably not too good. You go out and visit with them, then you don't need an office. Your investment is a lot less. So you're looking at probably around $100,000, give or take, on that one. Small office, you're probably looking at around $150,000, give or take, on those. Many different things that you can do with those, tutoring, senior care, staffing. Home improvement's a huge one, always has been a huge one. Anything from the outside for pest control to roofing to insulation, flooring, improving kitchens, painting, handyman services, many different franchises in those in that area on those. So there's many different things that you get into at various investment levels. And we have people that will get that funding for you or help you with that funding that work with franchises all the time. So if you don't want to necessarily use your own money on that, you want to use other people's money, as long as you have pretty decent credit, we have plenty of people out there, and I've got a few partners I can introduce you to that will help you get that loan that you need for that business.
What's the advantage of doing a franchises versus starting your own, or just, maybe trying to find a different business to buy outright? What are some of the advantages of doing it that way?
Good question, Jordan. There's a couple of advantages and, of course, disadvantages as well on that one. So I do work with many true entrepreneurs. True entrepreneurs are a challenge in that they have done it themselves, so that they know what it takes to get that business up. They know what it takes to get it going on that one. The reason they come to me is because they have gone through that process before and they don't want to do it again because it is quite a bit of work on that one. So doing it all by yourself is great because you are in total control of it. Everything is you. You get to do whatever you want and go in any direction you want to on that one. You'll be paying for it all by yourself. You will not have anybody to lean on. You'll have to go do all the education about the industry that you're looking into, the business that you're looking into, how to get that location if you need the location, where to get the clients. You'll be doing all that yourself on the negative note. On the positive note, you get to keep all the money to yourself, for yourself on that one. When you get into a franchise, what you're looking for there is you're looking for a partner in your success, somebody that's going to help you get to where you want to be, probably 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to do it yourself. They've got a proven business model. They've done it in the past. And depending on which franchise you're looking into, they've done it a few times, 2 or 3 times before, or hundreds of times before, depending on what type of franchise you want to get into. A franchise that has been around for a long time with 100 franchisees, good solid backing, good solid system. They've done it before. They know exactly the step-by-step process to take you through to get you where you want to be. In addition to that, they also have other franchisees that you're going to be making friends with along the way. They will also be helping you grow. You'll be talking to them before you invest in a franchise system. So when you're looking at a franchise, and the reason I like franchises better is because I have done it myself. I have bought a privately owned business, worked on it myself, actually with a partner. When I was working in engineering, we bought a dry cleaners and we bought some storage locations as well. And it was quite a challenge doing it myself and doing it with him, trying to figure out the industry and the business. Whereas with a franchise, they teach you everything. Now, you're going to pay the franchise fee, which is generally, when you're looking to do franchises, $50,000, give or take, a one-time franchise fee. And then you've got your ongoing royalties, which are generally between about 5 and 10%. Those keep the franchise in business, and the franchise keeps you abreast of everything that's going on in the industry. Any changes that need to be done, any new things that they're coming up with, they'll have. For the most part, I see almost every franchise will have at least a once-a-year meeting with all their franchisees, find out what's going on in the industry, get together, talk about best practices. It's really that good partnership that help you grow. Those royalties, they want as much out of you as they can get. And to do that, they have to make you as successful as they can on that. So it's a good partnership. You do have to pay the royalties, so you don't get to keep everything, 5 to 10%. You do have a one-time franchise fee of about $50,000. Whether or not that's worth it to you is something that you decide for yourself, and we help you determine specifically, if this is good for you, if this is something that you really want to do. So basically, in a nutshell, franchising is where you've got a partner in your success to help you grow, to help you get to where you want to be, as opposed to a privately owned business where you're on your own doing everything yourself.
You talked a little bit about helping business owners take their business the franchise route as well. So like my businesses are in home services. So when someone looks at that opportunity, do you have to have that proven process? Is there certain metrics that you look at for a business that would be a successful franchise if you owned a business?
There are certain things that will make it easier to find prospective franchisees for you on that one. So you don't necessarily, I've got a franchise right now that they ran their own business for a while, and then they actually sold that one off and then they became a franchise. So they don't have any locations at the moment, and they're becoming a franchise. We can still help them. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge when you don't have an existing location to show the P&Ls for, to show how well you've done. Maybe a little bit more of a challenge. It can still be done. It's just more challenging because when I get people who are looking to get into a franchise, they want to see that proven business model. They really like to see what really makes it a little bit easier for us is if you're making around $100,000 net or more on your location, on at least one location. That just makes it easier for people to wrap their heads around what the potential is if they get into your franchise. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. It's just a little bit easier. One location is fine. I got another gentleman, he's got one location. He's doing great with that one, and we'll get him growing and get him going on other locations as well through franchising. If you have more than one location, all the better. Just makes it a little bit easier to do that, to get those people in there. Now, as far as when you're first starting out, you've not became a franchise yet. You've got one location, making some pretty decent money. The people that I work with are going to put everything in place in order for you to become a franchise. So they're going to make certain that your operations manuals all in place. They'll go through that whole thing with you. They'll get that developed with you. They'll get you registered in the necessary states that you need to be registered in, get the FTD filed, franchise disclosure documents that outlines the background. There's about 20 different sections in there, and they're going to go through all that with you to get that in place as well. So the idea there is that you've got a nice system in place where you can just hand them, what to do and say, follow these procedures, and this is what's going to happen. This is what happened with me. This is what happened with you. So you've got the procedures, you've got the policies in place. You bring them over to your place, business, your offices for training, show them exactly how you did it. That way they can just step right in from day one and just take off and go.
How did you get into franchise consulting? Was it like, did you own one yourself, or like, how did you end up first getting into it?
Actually, the very first time I got into franchising was back in high school when I worked for Taco Bell.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't even know it back then. Wasn't even aware of franchising. The franchising wasn't even on my mind at all. But was one of my first jobs working for Taco Bell, and then along the way I found out that a master franchisor owned, and this was in Woodland, California. And then as I was there for a while, I became a manager, assistant manager, and then manager. And then I started managing their restaurants in Davis and all over Sacramento, helping them grow their business and put everything in order. And then I found out this was a franchise. And I had a lot of fun because I could go to any Taco Bell anywhere in that area, and it was going to be the same thing. The same thing needed to be done in exactly the same order, no matter which one I was in. I thought, this is the greatest thing. And I've come to find out that it's a franchise system. It's like, this is really cool. I got out of that, became a restaurant manager for another restaurant chain, became an electrical engineer, bought some businesses myself. But then, like a lot of my people, I got tired of the corporate world after a while. So I stepped away from that, and I just started thinking about the fact that, working for Taco Bell, that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that thing. There was a franchise, so I thought, I don't have the latest, greatest idea, so I need to look into franchising. So I started looking into it, and started clicking on all the little thing, Google it, and clicking on all the little buttons, and I had so many different franchise development people calling me up, and I didn't know franchise consultants existed at that time. So finally, when I clicked on one, I clicked on a couple of them. I got a couple of franchise consultants that called me up. I'm like, oh, wow, what do you do? It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. And they said, so put a hold on everything, stop everything that you're doing, and let's talk about what it is that you're really trying to accomplish. Similar to what I do now, learning from them. So one of them found me a great franchise system to get into, Scully Mitchell Telecommunications Consulting franchise. Dennis Scully was just awesome. He was the one that really opened my eyes to how well franchises train you, teach you, and get you going into the business. So I ran that one for a while. I did wonderful there with Dennis's help on that one. But one thing I was doing was I was traveling around to different businesses and talking to different business owners. And one of the things I didn't want to do was too much driving and too much out of the house. I lived out in the country away, so I really wanted something where I could sit in the comfort of my own home and talk to people all over the place. And so after running that franchise for a couple of years, I went back to my franchise consultants and I said, I really like what you do. I mean, you sound like you're having a lot of fun. You enjoy it. You help people go into business for themselves and make them successful. Teach me what you do. So lo and behold, I got into a franchise consulting. That was about 10 years ago. Sold off the telecommunications consulting franchise, became a franchise consultant, and that was 10 years ago. Haven't looked back since, and it is a lot of fun helping people, just like you do, Jordan.
Yeah. So how long were you in the corporate world? Was that through the electrical engineering that you did?
Yeah. So, so corporate world, started off then doing the Taco Bell thing. Then I went into a Lions restaurant and became a restaurant manager up in Northern California for Lions restaurant chain. That was about 17 years for those two. I was a manager, devoted myself down to waiter, went to school, got a degree in electrical engineering and physics, worked for Motorola Semiconductor for about 15 years, doing that. And then after about 15 years, I love the job, great job, very interesting. Didn't like having to be there from 7 to 5 every day. That and sit in the cubicle all day long. That one got a little old after about 15 years. So yeah, 15 years in the electrical engineering field. And then I decided, I got an MBA as well. So I went to school and I thought I got to do something different after a while to change things up. So I got an MBA, thought that maybe the MBA would pay better or be a better, more interesting job. It wasn't. But I started reading books about businesses, and I read Robert Kiyosaki's books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's when it started me thinking about that franchising thing again, and that there's something different and better that you can do out there other than just the corporate world. And I think that really marked the end of my corporate career after that.
So was it about 10 to 15 years ago when you read that book and kind of started thinking about making that change out of the corporate world?
So 10 years ago, I started. Yeah, it was probably about 15 years, 13 to 15 years ago, I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, and that's when I was getting my MBA. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. And then I read a whole bunch of sales books on that as well, how to help people, how to get people where they wanted. And I thought, this is the way to go, is really helping people get what they want in life, so that you can get what you want in life.
Yeah, there's something rewarding about that. And the reason I ask those questions is it only took me like 3 years of working in a cubicle to realize I wanted out. But I think a lot of people,
Good for you.
I think a lot of people think about owning their business or making those changes. And it can be kind of scary because of the money side, whether you think you're doing it just to make a bunch of money, or, there's a fear of losing that steady paycheck. But it seems the more I've talked to people that, and even myself, there's some sense of freedom that comes along with, making those decisions and doing the work for yourself. And that's the exciting part of business for me. So I just like to understand how people come to those decisions and identify, hey, this is what I want to do. This is, what really I'm passionate about. So that's why I find it interesting that for you, maybe it came from that book and just the amount of time that it took sitting there in that cubicle, realizing, there's not a lot of joy in that.
No, you're right. And it is tough because a lot of the people that come to the corporate world, including myself, is that you get addicted to that paycheck, so that every other week paycheck, it always shows up in your account. And it's a big addiction. And it was pretty scary, going into my own business. I think I woke up screaming 1 or 2 nights after that, wondering what I was getting myself into. But once you get into it, especially when you get into a good franchise system where you've already talked to enough people and realize that this is a good thing, just the freedom that comes with being able to determine your own course and really determine how much money you can make and not have to get that, that review every 6 months. You get a review every day when you're running your own business. So you know what you're doing right, you know what you're not doing right. And you can adjust on the fly, as opposed to, after 6 months to tell you, well, you weren't quite doing exactly what we had in mind here. It's like, why didn't you tell me 6 months ago? That would probably a lot of companies do, but still, it's that, that report, and you're in control. for the most part of your, or basically you're in control of your destiny at that point in time when you start owning your own business. So that's great freedom. You're right. Absolutely freedom.
Well, I know it's a little bit of rebellion too, because I'd rather make less money on my own than have somebody else tell me this is what you're allowed to make. I always hated that feeling of someone else determining what I was allowed to make. Uh, I don't know, but I think that that's what was interesting to me about the franchise idea is that there's some added security to doing it that way because you know that it's a successful process or business model. Um, so that was one reason why I wanted to talk to you because it's something that you, like you said, you kind of drive by them, you see them, but it's not something that you think about every day that these businesses are franchises or it's something that anybody can really get into, right? Is there qualifications or is it something that, anybody can do?
Franchising is something that anybody can do. There's a franchise for everybody out there. Certain franchises are going to have certain qualifications on that for that. So, for instance, if you go into a Sandler sales training franchise, and you sat in a cubicle like myself and been an engineer your entire life, you're probably not going to do too well at it now, because you're going to have to learn sales before you can teach somebody else sales. So a few of the franchises are going to have a little bit more qualifications as far as your background, but there is a franchise for everybody out there. I can find you one that you can do, and they'll teach you on that for the most part, especially if you've worked with people before and you've had people under you. That's the general concept of most franchises, is that you help people and you have people do the work for you and you grow the business itself, and they'll show you how to do that. So if you've done that, you pretty much run a business within a business already. And even if you haven't, there are franchises out there where you can just start with doing things yourself and then start building up teams as you get more successful, and franchisors will show you how to do that and teach you how to do that. So yes, franchise for everybody out there.
It's funny. It seems every business is, as you get to a certain point, it's all about just managing the people and those relationships, no matter what the business is. So I think there's, that's cool insight that, if you've worked with people before, you can run a business, right? Because that's the majority of it is people management, whether it's your team or the customers.
True. Very true.
Or just a job. I think, I don't know. In society today, there's a lot less people skills. Maybe it's I don't know how you fix that, but that dialogue between people seems to be lost. And I think it can help a lot of people get ahead, even if it's just in their own job or their own career, is just learning how to be, more open and honest with people.
Yeah, franchise will get you there, and you'll get used to that too as you're going along. And if you don't want to have people under you, and you don't want other people working for you, we got franchises where you can do the whole thing yourself, and you can still grow it to probably more than you were making at your job and just doing it yourself. It just depends again on your goals and where you want to be 5 to 10 years. Do you want to be able to step away, have the business run itself for the most part, and you collect the money and you just manage the manager and manage the profit and loss statements? Or do you really like in there just really getting hands-on, just having something to do all day where it keeps you busy and you make, like you said, you don't necessarily need to make as much as you made in the corporate world, but if you're having fun doing it, you're enjoying it. Quite a few of the people that I come in won't make as much as they did in the corporate world, but they just but they don't need that amount of money. They're just fine because they're happier doing what they're doing and just keeping their hands busy, keeping their minds busy throughout the day. And they're like, I'm good with that. I don't need to make, 6-7 figure income. I'm good with, 50, 80,000 a year, 6-8 hours a day, maybe 4 or 5 days a week. We're good. So something for everybody, definitely.
Well, so it sounds like more of your job as the consultant in this isn't, it's almost less on the business side, more about identifying the right opportunity for the right person, figuring out what their goals are.
Definitely so. It's one of the things that we look at as I ask them, whoever I'm working with, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to make money? Are you looking to contribute to society, make a difference in people's lives? Combination of both, one or the other. So that's when we start getting down into the nitty-gritty, what they're really wanting to do through the day. Do you want the time to go out there? Do you have kids that are at that age where they're busy in school all the time and you just want to make certain that no matter what they have going on, you're right there. You can be there taking them to and from appointments, being at their games, whatever they're doing, then we need to find a franchise that has that kind of schedule flexibility for you, or you can do anything that you want. You're not stuck in that office all the time. Do you want to make, a good, strong six-figure income? Well, let's take a look at the franchises where you can do that. It doesn't matter to you. You just want to, keep your hands busy for a few hours a day. Yeah. So you're right. We have to get down right into what exactly is that ultimate goal that they're trying to accomplish.
What I'm trying to think of how to. So whenever is it just through those conversations, or are people usually clear on what their goals are? Like how, I mean, you have to talk to a lot of people that are looking for something different, whether it be a business or in life. How do you help them identify what it is? Is it just asking the right questions, or what's that process look like?
Yeah. So it starts off with asking the right questions. And people, so for the most part, you can get a pretty good idea. I've got a little questionnaire for people to fill out, and then we go through that and I ask them lots of questions. We can start getting a good idea of what they have in mind for what they want to do. Quite often, I can narrow it down pretty quickly. 5 to 10 different opportunities for them, get them out there, and I can get out of those one or two that they're like, yeah, let's check out those two. Those two look good. What we're going to do, though, as we go along, we start looking into those franchises. What will happen is now people will get more of an idea of what franchising is all about. So they might have missed some things that they didn't think about to begin with as we start investigating the franchise, and they start looking at what they're going to do as a franchisee, and they're like, I like that. That's not exactly what I had in mind, but now it's got me thinking of, how about this? So as we go through the process itself and we start investigating it, talking to franchises, now they're getting more of an idea of what franchising is all about, so we can help narrow down the possibilities more. So if I don't get it exactly right the first time, usually the second, the third at the latest, I'll come back with a few others, we'll get it down, because that really gets people thinking about what they're going to be doing, what they can do, what a franchise is going to do for them, what their role is going to be. And then we start getting down that path. They're like, okay, now I know. So not always right away do they know exactly what that is they're trying to accomplish. But by the time they're through with my process and investigating franchise, yeah, we've got it down.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because one of the things that I've been trying to help people with, or just help identify, is that journey of, how do I figure out what it is I want to do? Because it's something that I always struggled with whenever I was growing up, and I think you get a lot of input from outside influences, whether that be parents or friends or school or whatever it may be. But starting to realize what it is that you want for yourself is just an important process in general. And I think it's cool that just thinking about, hey, there's a business opportunity out there, but then you have to sit there and identify, those goals with people.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing I did too, because I got into that School of Mitchell one and I thought this is perfect, exactly what I want to do, schedule freedom, come and go as I please, do all that. And then I started driving around and realized that, I don't want to drive around quite so much. So the benefit about that is that, once you built up that franchise a little bit, you can just sell it off to somebody else, because somebody else will come along and buy your book of business. But that's part of the process, is that, that driving was like, nah, I don't want to drive so much. So that's when I went back and got another one. So good benefits of the franchise is that if you run it for a while and decide it's not quite perfect, and I had another gentleman that did that with a kitchen remodeling franchise. He built that one up and said, this was good, but let's sell this one off and let's get me into something else. So I want to try something else now. So good opportunities out there.
No, that's awesome. Because that was my next question, is because I feel like the one way to figure out a lot of times what it is you like to do is to get out, just do things. So I didn't know how hard it was for somebody, if you get into a particular franchise, to get to switch. But I mean, it's almost like it's a great opportunity for someone that isn't sure even what business they'd want to do, because there is that opportunity to sell them out. So is that process, or is it, I guess the liquidity is what I'm asking about. Is it a pretty simple transaction to, hey, I've got into this one, I've either built it up or kind of maintained it, but I realize that's not, my ideal scenario. Are there people that buy and trade those often?
Yeah, quite often. I've got a whole list of franchise resales, and I've got people buying franchise resales right now
Wow.
on there. Uh, the other good thing about being into getting into a franchise is the fact that there are many franchise consultants throughout the United States. So when you're working with a privately owned business, when you go to sell it, you're generally going to be working with a business broker, one just in your area. But when you're working with a franchise, now you've got franchise consultants throughout the United States, and they've got their marketing for people all the time. And once you go to sell your franchise, you'll tell the franchisor that you're going to sell it. They'll tell all the other brokers and consultant organizations, which will tell all their consultants. So now you've got a few hundred, a couple thousand people looking for people who are going to want to buy that franchise in that. So people could be moving from another state to coming over there, where your private business broker may not be aware of or advertise to people all across the United States. They're just advertising for your town. You're missing out on the people that are going to be moving into town and want to buy a business. So you've got a wider range of people who may be looking into getting a franchise in that area and for that particular franchise. So that's a added plus.
So, but you're based in Texas, right?
Missouri now. Just moved to Missouri
oh,
just a couple years ago from Texas.
oh, nice. So,
Mhm.
but you could help somebody all over the country, right? Like somebody doesn't have to be in Missouri to necessarily work with you or to find franchises locally, right?
That's correct. The one that was the furthest away was the one that was in Germany, who
Oh,
came
wow.
to the U.S. with an E2 visa to get into franchise. So all over the world, mostly all over the U.S. I've got another gentleman that's coming in from Canada, moving to Texas, getting a franchise there as well, and another person from the Middle East who went over to Washington and bought a franchise. But yeah, most of mine is in the United States. Anywhere in the U.S., any state, I can help people in all over the world too.
So, and this is probably just my own limiting understanding, but like if I own a business, I understand that I can control some of the marketing or the operations to help make it more successful. If I'm part of a franchise, those procedures are kind of set. Are they helping with the marketing? Like what makes a person, or how can someone make a franchise successful if a lot of those things are kind of set in place as part of that procedure? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So the idea behind getting into franchising in the first place was that all those processes and procedures are in place. They've done it before. They've got a proven method of doing it. So you use their proven method of doing it. That doesn't mean you can't go out and do things yourself. They'll have all the marketing material. The franchise will have all the marketing material for you. Now you got to, stick with some of the times you have to stick with their exact marketing material because they have certain colors that are set or certain pictures that are set. But as far as doing marketing yourself, absolutely, you can go out and do it. And they encourage you to go out there and just do the marketing yourself for your particular area. If there's something different that you want to do, you can, and they encourage that quite often. So you have a lot of leeway as far as what kind of marketing and advertising you can do, in addition to what the franchise is going to supply for you as well.
Do they often have their own hiring processes as well, or is that on the franchisee to kind of build their team?
That will depend on the franchise itself.
Okay.
So if you're looking at something like senior care, where you're going to be hiring a lot of caregivers on that, then you want to be looking for a franchise system that has those procedures in place for you to be able to find what they determine are the best caregivers, what questions to ask, where to look for them, that you'll be going out and doing that process. But they will give you the guidelines to look for, what questions to ask. And some of the other services franchise will do the same thing when you're hiring people. We'll do that. They'll have a complete questionnaire to go through so that you can start eliminating some and just bringing in the best ones on that. And there's a couple of franchises that will actually help you and do some of the hiring or help you find the people. itself, they pretty much want you to do want you to have the final say in that, to help you find the people, but they want you to have the final say because that is going to be your team on that. So you'll be doing the final interviews on who's going to be part of your team.
Do you find that people that start in the franchise world stay in it and end up expanding through the kind of the same methods? Like if I were to buy a franchise, but I want to grow, does it often happen that, hey, I'm going to now get a second one or a third one, maybe in that same business or other franchises as well? Does it seem that those people that succeed in it end up expanding to others?
Yes, for the most part, I have seen that play out time and time again. They'll either expand out with more units of the type of franchise that they want to. I have one gentleman that sees up, he bought we had some supercuts resales a while back, and he bought a dozen or so from me. He's up to about 78 right now, and his goal is to get to 100 of them. He does that. Then the other gentleman I was telling you about with the kitchen remodeling franchise, he sold that one, got into another franchise on that one. And then sometimes people will diversify out. They'll get into one type of franchise, and then they'll want to diversify their holdings and get into a different type of franchise. So I'll have some people I got a couple people that had restaurants, and now they're looking at marketing systems. Senior care systems are good too, so that they got a little diversity of money coming in. Very rarely do I hear of any of my people selling the franchise and going back to the corporate world. It has happened once or twice, but very
Of
rare.
course. So one person has 78 of the same franchise.
Yep, he sure does.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for every 10, I think every 8 or 10 units he buys, he puts in a regional manager in place, so that he does practically nothing on that. Pretty much runs itself. So you'd think that there'd be a whole lot of work to do with those, but no, once you put a regional manager in place, then you just work with the manager, and the manager takes care of all the unit franchises.
What's next? Like, what does your growth look like? I mean, I know you've written one book. Is it more books? Is it just growing the consulting thing? Like, what are your goals and your future look like?
I might get into another book. I co-wrote a book with a couple other people, Coaching Inc. That's one to check out about coaching world on that one. I might write one more book on that, but mostly I'm just really looking to help as many people as I can get what they want on that, whether it be owning a franchise, investing in a franchise, or becoming a franchise. On that, I'm kind of 50-50 right now with the people that are either, turning their business into a franchise or wanting to buy an individual franchise themselves. So I just have one heck of a good time helping out people. I just realize their dreams and their goals. So I'm stay with this and work out of the comfort of my own home out here in Missouri, and help as many people as I can.
So do you consider like what you do coaching? If you've written books on it, is that what you consider what you're doing, is like coaching these people through their business decisions?
Yeah, I sure do. I coach them through the process itself on that business coach for the most part. And, not everybody that I work with will get into a franchise. So one of the coaching things I do is we've got to really figure out, are they really ready to go into business for themselves? And is franchising right for them at all? So that's part of the coaching process is, let's get some information. Let's gather the information. Let's see what, this life is all about. And is it the life for you, or isn't it? Oh yeah, it is. A lot of it's just coaching people along, getting them to make certain that they talk to as many different franchisees as they can, gather the information from the franchise, and then we meet usually at least once a week, talk about what they've gone over. We're usually looking at 2 or 3 different franchises, and we'll talk about what they've learned, what their likes are, what the dislikes are, what their fears are, what their concerns are, and make certain that we're on the right path for them. So I keep coaching along in the process, gather the information. You're not to the point where you're going to be writing a check. Don't even think about that until we've gathered the information that you need in order to make that decision of, is this the kind of life that you want? Is this the step you want? Because it is a big decision in people's lives to make that investment. It's it's same with buying a house, depending on which franchise they get into and depending on how much their house was. So it's a big decision. Coach them along. So that's all coaching.
Did you coach previously, like whether it be athletics, or did you just identify this from, kind of managing people through all these different career paths?
Just managing people through the career
Okay.
paths. I never was a coach. I did sports, but no, it was all. A lot of it was going into those Taco Bells and the different ones. What I did with those was I helped those businesses grow. Each individual one, they're having issues with those units, and I would help build up those units. And the same thing that I did with the Lions restaurant chain as well. I went into a few different ones and helped them build that business up. And it was coaching the people. And so in some respects, I guess you can call it coaching people, but building the teams up, making them feel good about where they work, making them feel good about, their jobs and what they were doing, making it a pleasant environment to work in.
I want to dive into that a little bit, because I saw, maybe it was an excerpt from your book, but you talked about when you were helping those restaurants specifically, that you would talk to the employees and find out what they recognize the problems as, and then kind of go from there. So how did that work? How did you, I guess, just kind of dive into talking or identify the problems with the employees, but then addressing it at a higher level, if that makes sense?
It does. So basically what you need to do, just go in there and when you're talking with your employees, just say, the sales haven't been great, we're getting a lot of call-in sicks, what's going on? You just tell me about it. Just talk to me about, what it is you see on a day-to-day activity, where you feel things could be changed or improved, and really get their input. I think that getting employees' opinions on what's happening in the workplace, it makes them realize that you really care about them and you're really concerned about their well-being, and they're just not somebody that you're just going to hire, and if they do their job you'll continue to pay them. If they don't do the job, you fire them, but you're really concerned about what they're doing. So helping people, and then just finding out what it is they're trying to accomplish. What are you doing here? Why are you here in the first place? Do you just need the money? Are you looking to make to improve yourself, to move up in the chain, to become ship leader, a manager, own your own restaurant or something at some point in time? And it gets people realizing the fact that you actually care about them and you have some concerns for them. And that really helped, is really just talking to people and finding out what it is that they were looking to do and why they were there. That just, if they just want to make money, well, then you just show them, well, you do this and you help me increase sales, you bring in more clients, and you want to make some more money, I'll pay you more money. You keep getting better at what you do and making those customers happy, and I guarantee you I will keep paying you more money on that, if that's what your goal is. If you want to learn how to become a manager of one of these places, fine, let's sit down and go over the plan of action, what you need to do to get there. We will get that done together. But just showing them that you care and that you're concerned with them and that they're not just a number is a big help.
No, that's awesome. And I've thought about that a lot in our businesses, about how to make sure that people feel that they're a part of the solution. Everybody has ideas on what the problems are, but kind of getting that cooperation and that input on the solution, I think is big in building that culture of a business. And it's cool that you could do it at a kind of a micro level of a macro company, right? Like Taco Bell's obviously a big organization, a lot of franchises, but you were still able to help their stores. You would think they'd have it all figured out, but you could still go in there and help them out.
Yeah, it's amazing. We think if everybody followed the process and procedures that it would be perfect, but when it comes to having teams of people and dealing with people, and you got a little bit of a variable in there that you got to do. You got to let them know what your goal is and find out what their goal is, and then just align those so that we're all going in the right direction. But the people variable is definitely something that comes into play, and that's, well, as we were talking about earlier, part of being a franchise is just helping the people and having a team of people do things for you. In order to do that, you've got to do things for them as well.
Yeah, no, I think that that's one mindset that I always look at is that, I work for the people that work at our businesses, right? Like my job is just to support them and help them do their job as best as possible. Um, but like I said, I just never thought of it from a franchise perspective, because you think about the rigidity around, well, there's a process or a procedure around everything, but it does seem that there's room for individuality and, your own input in those businesses.
Very true.
Now, hey, I appreciate you kind of talking through all this. What's the best place that people can contact you or find out more about, what you do, or maybe they want to get involved in a franchise?
Go to my website, probably get some good information about me there, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, MAV as in Victor, EN.com. Plenty of information out there. I'll find a link to my book out there if you want to check out my book, Real Freedom, Why Franchises Are Worth Considering. Or pick up the phone, give me a call, 361-772-6401. I love talking about franchising, as you can tell. So feel free to give me a call anytime, or Greg at franchisemaven.com if you just want to shoot me out an email.
Greg, can't thank you enough. Very insightful, at least for me, to learn about the different processes and avenues that someone can take to own their own business and kind of change what they're doing.
My pleasure, Jordan. I appreciate being on today. Thank you very much.
For sure.